The Hallway of Justice. The morning sun filtered through the tall, arched windows of the courthouse, casting long and solemn shadows across the polished marble floors. In this particular sanctuary of the law, the atmosphere was thick with the weight of expectation and the lingering scent of old paper and floor wax. At the center of it all sat a woman whose presence commanded the room before she even spoke a single word. Judge Ebony Kay. Rose looked down from her elevated bench, her eyes sharp and discerning, taking in the three young women who stood before her. She was a woman who carried her heritage with pride, a blend of North Carolina roots and Louisiana soul, tempered by the sophisticated cool of the West Coast and the unyielding edge of New York City. To her, the law was not just a set of rules, but a living, breathing commitment to integrity and freedom. Judge Ebony Kay. Rose leaned forward, her voice resonant and steady as she addressed the room. She asked if there was a problem, her tone a mixture of authority and genuine inquiry. The plaintiff, a young woman named Jenny Sim, shook her head quickly, assuring the court that there was no problem. The judge nodded, emphasizing that in her courtroom, the only thing that truly mattered was how she saw the facts. She had spent her life pursuing the law to be a voice for those who could not speak for themselves, and she held the values of equal justice above all else. Today, however, the dispute was less about grand ideals and more about the messy, complicated reality of shared living spaces and the flashpoints of human temper. The case involved Jenny Sim and two sisters, Melissa and Carrie Smith. Jenny was seeking $430 for medical expenses she claimed were the result of an injury sustained during a physical altercation. The Smiths, on the other hand, had filed a counterclaim for $251.28, alleging that Jenny had damaged a high-end cellular phone. As the judge looked over the filings, she noted the diversity of the people who passed through her doors every day, a tapestry of different backgrounds and identities, all seeking the same thing: a fair hearing. The roommates of college passed. Judge Ebony began the proceedings by addressing Jenny Sim. She wanted to understand the history between these women. Jenny explained that she and Melissa had met in college. They were part of a larger circle of mutual friends, though perhaps not the closest of companions. The judge, with a knowing glint in her eye, asked if they were true friends or merely frenemies. Jenny clarified that while they weren't best friends, they were compatible enough to decide to move in together after graduation. For the first year, the arrangement worked well. Melissa was a responsible roommate who paid her bills on time, which the judge noted was the most important quality in any living arrangement. However, the harmony began to fray when Melissa's sister, Carrie, entered the picture. Melissa had asked if Carrie could stay temporarily while she was between jobs. Jenny had agreed, assuming the stay would be short, perhaps a month at most. Instead, 3 months passed, and Carrie remained in the third bedroom, which had previously served as a guest room and storage space. To make matters worse for Jenny, Carrie was not contributing to the rent or the utilities. Jenny expressed her frustration, noting that while she had a higher standard of cleanliness than Melissa, she had been willing to tolerate a bit of extra work when it was just the two of them. But with a third adult in the house, the workload became overwhelming. The judge listened intently as Jenny described the mounting tension. The situation finally reached a breaking point on the 1st of August. Jenny described a night where the sisters had stayed home for what they called a sister night while Jenny had gone out. When Jenny returned home at 8 o'clock the following morning, she found the living room in a state of disarray. The sight of the mess, after months of simmering resentment, caused her to snap. The point of impact. Under the judge's direct questioning, Jenny admitted that she had popped off. She hadn't necessarily cursed at Melissa, but she had certainly used colorful language to express her outrage. The argument escalated quickly, moving from the kitchen into the living room, with both women shouting. It was at this moment that Carrie emerged from her room and inserted herself into the fray. According to Jenny, Carrie stepped between them and pushed her. The force of the push caused Jenny to fall, and in an attempt to break her fall, she landed awkwardly and sprained her wrist. Jenny provided the court with receipts from her emergency room visit. The total cost of the X-rays and non-surgical treatment was substantial, and even after insurance, She was left with a bill of $430. When the judge asked if the bill had been settled, Jenny admitted it was currently in collections and that she was relying on a favorable ruling to pay it off. The judge then turned her attention to the defendants. Melissa Smith painted a different picture of the household. She claimed she had been excited to have her sister around and had even invited Jenny to join their sister nights, which involved romantic comedies, wine, snacks, and plenty of blankets. Jenny, however, had declined to participate. On the morning in question, Melissa admitted there was a mess, but she argued that Jenny's entrance was unnecessarily aggressive. She testified that Jenny had not only yelled but had also knocked Carrie's phone out of her hand, shattering the screen. It was only then, Melissa claimed, that Carrie had pushed Jenny away in a defensive reaction. The counterclaim and the conflict. Carrie Smith took her turn to speak, explaining that she had been awoken by the sound of screaming and cursing. She came out to find Jenny in her sister's face and felt the need to defend Melissa. She admitted to stepping in the middle of the two women, an action she later realized might have been a mistake. She claimed that during the heated exchange, Jenny had swung her arm and struck the phone Carrie was holding. The phone hit the floor, resulting in a cracked screen that cost $251.28 to repair. Unlike Jenny's medical bill, Carrie had already paid for the repair out of pocket and was seeking reimbursement. Judge Ebony questioned Carrie about the nature of the push. Was it an act of retaliation for the broken phone? Carrie insisted it was a near-simultaneous reaction to the phone being knocked away. She suggested that Jenny had fallen not because of the force of the push, but because she was off balance and tripped near a coffee table. The judge was skeptical, noting that any intentional physical contact that propels another person can be considered an assault in the eyes of the law, regardless of whether a table was involved. As the testimonies continued, the details became more blurred. Jenny denied ever intending to hit the phone, claiming she was merely waving her arms to get Carrie out of her face. She argued that she wasn't even aware Carrie was holding a phone in the heat of the moment. Carrie countered that Jenny had specifically shouted for her to get that thing out of her face, implying a clear awareness of the device. The final verdict. After hearing both sides of the story, Judge Ebony K. Rose was ready to deliver her judgment. She began by addressing the living situation. She noted that while Melissa and Jenny had a signed roommate agreement, Jenny had failed to define the parameters of temporary when she allowed Carrie to move in. Therefore, a 3-month stay while searching for a job was not considered legally unreasonable. Turning to the physical altercation, the judge directed her words toward Carrie. She ruled that by voluntarily inserting herself into a heated dispute and bringing her phone into the line of fire, Carrie had assumed the risk of damage. The court would not hold Jenny responsible for the broken phone because Carrie had chosen to put herself and her property in a volatile situation. The counterclaim for $251.28 was dismissed. Finally, the judge addressed Jenny's claim for medical expenses. While the court acknowledged that Jenny had been injured, it also found that she had played a significant role in escalating the conflict. By popping off and initiating a high-tension confrontation, Jenny had invited a level of chaos that she could not control. The judge expressed sympathy for the injury, but concluded that the $430 in medical bills was a consequence of a situation Jenny had helped create. Therefore, the plaintiff's case was also dismissed. As the session drew to a close, the 3 women prepared to leave. There was no reconciliation, only the cold reality of a legal stalemate. In a final, biting remark, Jenny informed the sisters that she had since gotten a cat. She claimed the cat, despite leaving litter everywhere, was still cleaner than the 2 of them. With a final wish of luck from the judge, the parties exited the courtroom, leaving behind the echoes of their dispute in the halls of equal justice.